everyone, it's Sarah and welcome to my crochet channel. Today's video I'm going to show you how to make this basket. And the neat thing about this basket is even though I'm going to use it for a bread basket, you can use it for anything that you want to. You can make it in any colors. And you can use it to store all kinds of things. Yarn, of course, goodies, candy, jewelry, makeup. Set it in your bathroom or maybe on your dresser. And you can store whatever you want inside. You can also use it for a bread basket because we're going to be stitching with 2 strands of yarn and it's very sturdy. And of course, you can make it in lots of different colors for whatever holiday or season that you want to. Now this is a free crochet pattern on my blog, and I'll put that blog link down in the notes underneath this video. To make this basket, you're going to need medium weight number 4 yarn. You can use cotton, you can use acrylic, and you can use cotton acrylic blends. I do not recommend using wool because you're probably going to want to wash this often if you put any makeup or jewelry or bread or goodies in it. It just might get dirty. And remember, if you use wool and you throw it in the wash machine, it is going to shrink up and felt. But to make the 10 by 10 inch basket, you're going to need 3 different colors of yarn. You're going to need a main color, and I'm going to use this sort of a off-white color for the main color of my basket. And then I'm going to use green for the 2 rows of single crochet, and then I'm going to use this bright red for that center cross row. Don't worry, I'll show you exactly how to do that, so don't panic on that. Now, something I wanted to talk about before we get into the other things is when you're working with 2 strands of yarn, holding them together, there's a couple of different ways you can do that. For the white one, I have 2 skeins, and so I've got 2 of them here, and I'm going to be pulling out of both of them. With the green and the red, I'm not going to be using 2 skeins, so what I did is I rolled it up into 2 separate balls. I've got 2 balls of green and 2 balls of red, and I can pull off of both of those at the same time. And I've got them in this little container so they don't roll all over the place. All right, and I'll show you a little more when we get started how you can keep your strands together. Another way that you can do this is if you just have 1 skein of yarn, you can pull from the outside and the inside and hold them together as well. You need to do what works best for you and what is most comfortable for you to do. All right, we're going to be stitching today with our end hook, and the end hook that we're using is a 9.0 millimeter crochet hook. You need a good, sturdy, big end hook. You're going to need a needle, and make sure you've got a nice big eye so we can get both those strands of yarn through it. And then, of course, you're going to need your scissors. We're going to be starting with the center of our basket, working our way out, and then do the sides. I've got my 2 strands of white because that's my main color. I'm going to hold them together and make my slip knot. And then I'm going to chain 5. Now you're going to hold everything the same if you were using 1 strand that you do when you're using 2 strands. The only difference is you'll find me pulling this out to make sure everything stays lined up. You don't want your one maybe to get loopy or droopy so they don't stay together. And once you've done this a couple of times, it really is easy. All right, so we're going to go ahead and make our chain 5. We're going to take those tails of yarn, put it over our hook, and pull it through the loop on the hook. We'll go ahead and snug that down and tie that stay knot. And again, if you prefer to do the magic circle here, you certainly can. And remember, you do what works best for you. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go in that chain 5 hook loop, with our hook, pull up a loop, and chain 3. 1, 2, and 3. Yarn over, and now we're going to stitch 9 double crochets in this chain 5 loop. Our chain 3 counted as our first, and we're going to stitch 9 more, so we have 10 double crochets. I'm also going to be stitching over this tail of yarn. Alright, so yarn over, go in, pull up a loop, yarn over, go through the first 2, yarn over, and go through the second 2. And see how I'm pulling that out together to make sure those stay together? Alright, let's make those double crochets. There we go. Make sure we get both those loops. See how I missed that loop? Got to make sure we get it. We want it to all look uniform and even. Let's string out of the way there. There we go. Just take your time until you're comfortable. Let's see how many I've stitched here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 9 and 10. Now I'm going to count again because I want to make sure I have only 10 double crochets. Our chain 3 counted as our first, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I have 10 double crochets counting that chain 3. I'm going to join to the top of that chain 3 with a slip stitch and chain 3. Alright, so I have 10 double crochets, chain 3. Now before we do row 2, I'm going to turn this over, and we stitched over this, so I'm going to just gently pull on that and close that hole up. Alright, we're going to have to weave this in anyway, so let's go ahead and thread those strands onto our needle and go ahead and weave it in. And then it will be all taken care of. We won't have to come back and worry about it. Nobody wants a hole in the center of their basket, no matter what you're putting inside of it. Alright, so I go one way, get those strands, there we go, and go back the other way. Just make sure you don't have a hole in the center. Alright, now, if you don't have a needle with a hole that's big enough for both strands of your yarn, you can do the 2 strands individually. Just make sure you've pulled on that so that the hole in the center is closed. Alright, so there's row 1, 10 double crochets, join chain 3, and again we use 2 strands of yarn. And we're going to stitch the entire basket using 2 strands of yarn. For row 2, we're going to stitch 2 double crochets in each of those 10 double crochets. Our chain 3 counted as our first double crochet, so we're going to double crochet in the same stitch as that chain 3. And now we're going to stitch 2 double crochets in each of those 10 double crochets. This is going to give us a nice flat center to the inside of our basket. 2 double crochets in each double crochet around. Whoops, gotta be careful, grab both those strands. We don't want any loopy droopy stitches. 2 double crochets in each double crochet around, then we'll join back to our chain 3. I've stitched those 20 double crochets, stitching 2 double crochets in each of those 10. I'm going to join to the top of the chain 3 with a slip stitch and chain 3. So now for row 3, we're going to repeat what we did for row 2. We're going to stitch a double crochet in the same stitch as our chain 3, and then we're going to stitch 2 double crochets in each of those double crochets around. So 1 double crochet in the same stitch as our chain 3, and then 2 double crochets in each of the double crochets around. And since we have 20 double crochets on row 2, row 3 we're going to have 40 double crochets. And this is going to give us a nice flat bottom to the inside of our basket. We don't want it pooching up or curling up. Now, as you're stitching, if you find that your stitches are too tight and maybe curling some, you can go up a hook size or just loosen up just a little bit, because it's really important for the inside of our basket to be nice and flat. All right, so I'm just going to continue around stitching 2 double crochets in each of the double crochets around, all the way around. Then I'll join back. Oops. Then I'll join back to my chain 3. I've completed row 3, stitching 2 double crochets in each stitch around. So now I have 40 double crochets. Now for row 4, we're going to do it just a little bit different. Our chain 3 counts as 1 double crochet, and then we're going to stitch 2 double crochets in the next stitch. And the repeat around is going to be 1 double crochet in the next double crochet and 2 double crochets in the next. I call that 1 and 2. It's not an official term. It just helps me remember what I'm supposed to be doing. 1 double crochet in the next stitch, 2 double crochets in the next. 1 and 2. There we go. 1 double crochet in the next stitch and 2 double crochets in the next. Got to get both those loops. And so what we're doing on the 4th row is 1 double crochet in the next stitch, 2 in the next, and repeat 1 and 2 all the way around, and then join back to the top of our chain 3. I've completed row 4, stitching 1 and 2, and something you might notice is it might be just a little bit ripply. Don't panic. That's what it's supposed to do. This next row, we're going to do 1 double crochet in each double crochet around, and it's going to pull those ripples out. I promise. I joined to the top of my chain 3 and chained 3. And so for row 5, we're just going to stitch 1 double crochet in each of the double crochets around. And you'll see that as we stitch this row, that it will pull out those little bit of ripples that might be there from row 4. One double crochet in each of the double crochets around, working all the way around, and then we'll join back to our chain 3. And again, don't panic. this row will pull out all of those ripples so that the inside of your basket lays nice and flat. I completed row 5, stitching 1 double crochet in each of the double crochets around, and if you'll notice, it lays nice and flat. If it's not laying flat, you can kind of pull on it a little bit so that it does, but as we keep going, you'll find that it's going to lay nice and flat on the inside of your basket. Now, this is the outside, and so we're going to take our circle and lay it this way because we're going to begin stitching around this edge. All right, now for row 6, we're going to be stitching 1 double crochet in each double crochet around, but we're going to be stitching in the back loops only. And if you look on the top of your stitches, you'll see there's a loop on this side and a loop on this side. The loop that's on this side is your front loop. The loop that's on this side is your back loop. And we're going to be stitching our double crochets in these back loops. We've already joined and chained 3, so we'll yarn over, we'll go in the back loop only, pull up a loop, and stitch our double crochet. We're still stitching double crochets, we're just putting it in a different place. And one thing also, because we're stitching with 2 strands, make sure you go through both those strands. All right, so we're stitching 1 double crochet in each of the double crochets around, but we're stitching in the back loop only. And you'll see that there'll be a ridge across here. And that's going to help the basket sit up because we're beginning the side edge of our basket. 1 double crochet in each of the double crochets around, stitching in the back loop only. We'll do this all the way around and join back to our chain 3. I've completed row 7, stitching 1 double crochet in each of the double crochets around, stitching in the back loop only. I joined, but I did not chain 3 because we're going to change colors. I'm going to leave my main color attached because we'll be bringing that back in at the end. I'm going to bring in my green, and again we're using 2 strands. We're going to snug everything down, those strands out of the way. All right, and then we're going to chain 1. Now remember, when you're changing colors, you need to do your chain 1 after the color change, or you'll end up with a little blurb of white in there, and it won't look as neat. Now, we're not going to be stitching in the back loops anymore, and for this row, we're going to just stitch 1 single crochet in each of the double crochets. So we'll go in the next stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, and go through both stitches. Working all the way around, and then we're going to join back to our first single crochet. And again, we're not working in the back loops anymore, just 1 single crochet in each double crochet around, and join back to our single crochet. I've completed this row, stitching 1 single crochet in each of the stitches around. I'm going to join back to the first single crochet with a slip stitch. We're going to leave the green attached because we're going to come back in and do another row of green. So we're going to set those aside. We've got our white and our green, or color 1 and 2, still attached. We're going to grab our third color. And this is for that center section of cross stitches. So we're using red because I'm doing this one in Christmas colors. We'll snug that down. And we're going to chain 3. There we go. Now, we're going to be doing that little cross stitch. The way the cross stitch is going to work, our chain 3 counts as 1 double crochet, and then we're going to double crochet in the next stitch. All right, and now we're going to cross back and stitch a triple in the stitch before the chain 3. And we do that by putting 2 wraps on our yarn. We're going to cross back into that stitch. We'll pull that loop up and we'll have 4 loops on our hook. Yarn over, go through the first 2. Yarn over, go through the second 2. Yarn over and go through the third 2. All right, and this is the way that it's going to look. All right, let's do another one. We're going to skip the next single crochet and we'll stitch a double crochet in the next 2. 1 and 2. We're going to cross back and make a stitch here, a triple, 2 wraps, cross back to that skipped stitch, and we go in from behind. Yarn over and pull that loop through. We'll have 4 loops. Now I know it looks like 6, but remember we're using 2 strands of yarn. Yarn over, go through the first 2. Yarn over, go through the second 2. Yarn over and go through the third 2. And now you can already see the pattern of the cross stitches. Some people call these mock cables. I love them. I don't even care what their name is. I just love stitching them and love the way they look. Skip the next stitch, 1 double crochet in the next 2. Two wraps on our hook. And remember, don't wrap those too tightly. We'll come back and stitch our triple in that skipped stitch. Isn't that beautiful? All right, so we're going to continue this all the way around. Skip 1 stitch, 2 double crochets, 1 in each of the next 2, and cross back and stitch a triple in that skipped stitch. There we go. Just take your time. It's not hard. It just can be a little bit clumsy when you're first getting started. Skip the stitch, 1 double crochet in the next 2, and then stitch our triple in that skipped stitch. And like I said, we're going to continue this all the way around for this row. And once we get around, I'll show you how to join so it looks nice and neat. I completed this row of my cross stitches or mock cables, and you should have 20 mock cables that total up to 60 stitches. All right, so here's our last one. Here's our 2 double crochets and our cross back. And the way we join is we join to the chain 3 back here. So we join back here with our slip stitch, We're done with the red, and so we're going to go ahead and cut that yarn. All right, so that's one less yarn that we have to worry about. All right, so now what we're going to do, we'll weave those in a little bit later. We're going to grab back in our green yarn. Snug it all down. Chain one. And what we're going to do is we're going to stitch another row of single crochets. And when you stitch cross stitches or an interesting stitch like this, sometimes it's difficult to know where to put your stitches. And so if you look on the top of your row and follow those stitches around, you should be just fine. And make sure that you stitch one single crochet in each of those stitches around. And you want to make sure that when you get around, you have 60 single crochets. Our white one's getting a little tangled there. All right, so just follow around your stitches by looking on the top of your row, and you should be able to find them just fine. One single crochet in each stitch around, and we're using our color 2. And then we'll join back to our first single crochet. I've completed this row of green single crochet all the way around. I've gone ahead and cut my yarn, and I'm going to join to my first single crochet. And now I'm going to bring in my white yarn that we carried in from the inside. So we can get these strings out of the way there. There we go. Make sure everything's snug down. We're going to chain 1. And then again, we're just going to single crochet around this top edge. One single crochet in each single crochet around. And this is our last row, and we'll be all done and ready to fill it with whatever we want to. One single crochet in each single crochet around, and then we'll join back to our first single crochet. I've completed that row of single crochet. I'm going to join to that first single crochet with a slip stitch. I'm going to cut my yarn. I'm going to go in that next stitch and pull that loop through to the inside and tie off back there. That way the edge of my basket looks nice and tidy. Now I do have a few weave-ins to do, but this is the way your basket should look. And by using that 2 strands of yarn, you get a nice sturdy basket. And so here are the 2 finished bread baskets. This one has fall colors, this one has holiday and Christmas colors, and you could make these in any colors that you want to. Make them in Valentine's Day or pink and green for spring. You can do these in any colors that you want and use them for just about anything that you want to. They're super fun to make, and they're lovely, lovely to look at.